Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Monday, March 20th, 2023. Spring is in the air and over the air. I'm Jer Stays, and on the other side of the line is
Fletcher Sharpe.
Man, we've got a lot to get through, whether it's line signings, we're going to talk a little MSU, we're going to talk a little U of M, and of course, Detroit City FC pulled out the win in convincing fashion, 3-1 over the weekend. So where do we start? I guess the Lions, right?
They last year had one of the worst secondary units in the entire NFL. It was a reason why they were really good, but not good enough to make the playoffs. They put a lot of pressure on you, which was great for the defense. But a lot of quarterbacks could come here, and if they could find an open receiver, they would look like Johnny Unitas throwing the ball for the first time ever. The thing I really appreciate about Brad Holmes is he said, you know what? I see the numbers. I hear the fans. Let's address it. 3 of their offseason signings so far have been cornerbacks or safeties, defensive backs. Most recently, they signed Emmanuel Mosley, who was a college teammate of recent signing Cam Sutton. They also recently signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who just played in the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Both these are of note because C.J. Gardner-Johnson tied for league in interceptions. He's a good playmaker back there at the safety role. Emmanuel Mosley was doing really well for the 49ers, was a high prospect towards ACL last year, but he should be ready to start by the time the season's ready to go. Also, him playing with Cam Sutton, who is a pretty solid cornerback in his own right, someone he went to college with, knows each other pretty well. To have that connectivity in the defensive backfield is great because you have players who know each other's strengths and weaknesses decently, who know how to cover for each other. You have elite players who kind of, I'm not going to, crap on the players that were there before and say they're not elite. They're elite athletes in the world because they're playing in the NFL. But you have players who had better statistical years last year and better careers so far. Filling in around young Jeff Okudah, who can learn and be a sponge from all this, it's great because you get your high prospect at corner, learning from other all-pro, Pro Bowl type players. He can only get better from there.
Looking at some of the news, I saw some deals getting restructured. It feels like people are making room to actually make a run at this thing. As I said, maybe not the Super Bowl, but get into it.
Yeah, that's the finite line between a team that's rebuilding and a team that's going for it, is if you can get the players on your roster who are making money to be like, I will restructure my deal so you can have more money to give towards somebody else. Like a rebuilding team is like, no, I'm taking all of my money. Sorry, that's not happening. They're getting in their groove of, trying to become good again, which I'm sure every fan loves to see.
I don't think being competitive for winning the division is insane.
I mean, if this was beginning of last season, I would say yes. But after the way they ended last season, the way Green Bay is kind of imploding, and the Vikings have gotten rid of one of their playmakers and Adam Thielen going to Carolina, and the Bears are just the Bears. I don't know. This could be the Lions' chance to step in and say the NFC North is ours, at least for a year. I think this is a chance they maybe take a few strides. I'm not going to say I'm totally on the bandwagon. I'm totally drinking the Kool-Aid.
Because I was going to ask you, because listeners are offering me packets of Kool-Aid for you.
But I will say they're making the moves of a team that knows what they're doing. And that's the first step to really making a run, is knowing what you're doing. And Brad Holmes, who's built winners in the past, we really just got to trust him that he knows what he's doing.
Let's get into the college basketball talk. There's a couple of things I want to mention. Number one, of course, Michigan State and their victory. They're going to be playing Kansas State next. There's a lot good to look at here. I mean, it feels like this is kind of a redeeming end of the season for MSU.
Yeah, they're beginning of the year. And honestly, it's Tom Izzo is a genius for this. People always talk about their record isn't that great. Their record isn't that great. It's because Tom Izzo looks at the top 25 and he's like, who are going to be the best 5 or 6 teams we can play, and schedules ways to play them. Like with Duke, he played Duke to start the season for 6 years, where it's like, all right, probably going to lose this game. They have 5-star recruits. We have, our few 5-stars surrounded by a lot of, local kids. We'll do what we can do. And then at the end of the year, those local kids, are ready to go. They're ready to play. Your other 5-stars have iron sharpen iron, so they're a bit better ready to go. And it's like, well, they lost to Duke, but Duke is, third in the country. That's what happened this year. They played Alabama, who was number 1 for a period of time. They played Purdue in the division. They played a bunch of really good teams out of conference, which allowed them to strengthen their schedule, and now they're where they are. And it honestly helped. I mean, those losses don't really look good on paper, but it honestly helped with the fact that like they're ready for those really tough games. Against Marquette, a really good team, really good coach in Shaka Smart. The players gritted down and made sure they weren't going to lose. Tyson Walker, who I did not know was from New York, which explains exactly the way he plays basketball. I have no more questions. Hit a lot of really tough shots, a lot of one dribble, step back shots right in the paint. AJ Hoggard continued to play like an NBA point guard. I know a lot of people maybe might not want to hear that, but he made the plays he needed to make. I need to write a letter to Joey Hauser saying I'm sorry. Because most of last year and this year, I've been like, man, for someone who's so highly recruited, a big guy, kind of playing kind of soft. I know you're a college kid, so I'm not going to, jump on you as if you were a pro, but you're playing kind of soft, man. Like all this thing around you, your brother's in the NBA. Like, what are you doing? And like the past month and some change, it's kind of maybe hit him. This is his last few college games to play, and he's playing like a man who does not want to stop playing before the Final Four. So that's been really interesting to see the change in the team. Kansas State's pretty good. They have Marquise Noel, who is also from New York, and you can tell by the way that he plays. He will throw a no-look pass regardless of what the score is and what the time is, which lets you know that he's full of confidence. They have they're a team that shoots a lot of threes. So you got to get out and put a hand in someone's face and make sure that Noel can't just, cross you over and no-look you to death, because it's fun if you're of a rooting interest, but I'm sure if you're a Michigan State Spartan, you really don't want to see that guy getting the shakes going, because when that happens, it means it's probably game over for you. I think they'll give Kansas State a pretty good game. I don't know if they can overcome them, especially if they shoot like they did last night. I didn't realize Michigan State was top 5 in the country in three-point percentage. If you watched yesterday's game, you wouldn't have known that either, because they shot 2 of like 18 from 3, which I'm not good at math, but like that's really bad. They missed a lot of open shots, which is encouraging, because if open shots are there, they should knock those down. So I think they have a chance. Obviously, getting to the Sweet 16 is a pretty big mark. I don't know. I'm not as confident as, them taking down Marquette.
The odds makers put Kansas State in front on this one.
Well, that's because nobody wants to bet against Tom Izzo. Of course, Kansas State should win based on the fact they have higher recruited players, had a better season. But, like, you feel like an idiot when you bet against Tom Izzo and then he wins. Then you're like, well, of course. That was stupid.
Well, because Izzo plays a game that's on the court. He plays a game in front of him, and he looks at this from a bigger perspective that really it is all about the tournament. This seems like a situation where it's either you bet in favor of Tom Izzo or you hold. Let's talk about the other side of basketball in the state of Michigan, and that is going to be the University of Michigan, and just, like a collapse against Vanderbilt, where this is a sad end to basically a sad season, and I think the choruses are getting louder for, is it time, is Juwan the guy? Is it time for him to go, or is it time to change directions? Because being in the NIT and like losing like this is not what Michigan fans expect. Like they expect to be at least in the conversation. They expect to be in a much better place than they are. And it seems like Juwan's Wolverines are not it.
The Michigan and Michigan State's records are very similar. When it came to Selection Sunday, though, and Michigan State fans were like, we're a 17. Michigan fans like, we have no chance of making this tournament. Because you look at their out-of-conference schedule and it's not nearly as tough. I was one of the people, I wrote an article for Hour about how the football team's on the way down, the basketball team's on the way up.
Whoops.
Yeah. Yikes. But I was one of the people who was like, you know what? I know Juwan had a rough season 2 seasons ago. I know he took a swipe at somebody. Can't do that. I'm not going to sit here and say that he was right to do it. But I was like, give him a chance to bring in his own guys. Like, you never want to fire a coach before they bring in their own recruits. Well, enough years have gone by. He's got his own recruits. He's got his own son playing. And they look competitive at times, but also at times they just look like they're out there to cash in NIL deals and in the season. You don't ever want to blame a collapse on the coach. Like, I know if it happens once or twice, it's the players, it's something, maybe the coach didn't figure something out. But a lot of their year has been back and forth games. We take a lead for something, and then we have some really stupid way to lose. Like the game against Vanderbilt. They were up 8 with less than a minute to play. They gave up 9 straight points, 3 straight turnovers, and called for a goaltending with 13 seconds left. Still had a chance to win the game, and they still couldn't win that's I don't know who to fault at that point. I don't want to say it's the coach's fault because the coach is not on the court, but like if the players keep making the same mistakes, who else do you blame?
One way or another, is it time, or when will it be time to bid adieu to Coach Howard?
I don't like firing coaches like that, but Michigan fans are they expect to do well. Even if they don't expect to win, they expect to be in the conversation for whatever it is. Whenever there's a tournament at the end, Michigan expects to have 1 or 2 representatives in there. So to not be in the NCAA tournament while also watching your direct rival be in the NCAA tournament and do well, while also watching you crash out of the NIT in a very, very dumb way to lose. Yeah, I'm sure they might be looking at the next guy. I just don't know who the next guy is right now. I think his seat is as hot as it can be without, firing him.
He needs to just get some wins. He needs to get back in the conversation. Is that enough?
I think they'll give him the first half of the season to see how he's doing non-conference wise. If he can string together some wins, I think, the seat will probably cool a little bit. But if he struggles non-conference, I think that's when they let him go.
All right. You heard it here first. That's the prediction. Fletcher, as we do every week during the season, we get into Detroit City FC coverage and talking about this win, which I am excited to talk about. But first, I want to make a little reminder on the eve of coming back home to Keyworth that this kind of work at Daily Detroit is not free to produce. And I wanted to make a mention that, we actually do not have a sponsor for Detroit City FC coverage. So we really need people's support over at patreon.com/dailydetroit, because it's something where we put a lot of hours into the DCFC coverage. I mean, Fletcher, we are out there on match day, every home match. We're doing videos. We're doing stuff for the newsletter. We're doing this show. You're getting things together. Like, I think I know that we lean the most in sports, and it's a heavy focus for us in general for the podcast. Because, I mean, we just, enjoy covering the team, and it's, I think, such a great story for the Detroit region as well.
I mean, it's not just the games, like an occasional practice. Maybe they're at an away game and people are at the field house. Other things, friendlies. Like, you might have noticed that my hair's graying a bit more. It's because while it's fun to do, it's a little stressful. And you could help make it a little bit less stressful by getting to the Patreon. So yeah, maybe help me not gray as quickly, please.
Or at least support for some coloring.
I mean, unless you like guys with gray hair, then in which case, keep doing what you're doing. But like, you might end up making me turn all the way gray, and I don't think many people really want that right now in my mid-30s. So please help us help you by getting to the Patreon so we can keep putting out really great content for you surrounding Detroit's soccer team.
If you do happen to be somebody who's interested in sponsoring, of course, you can email me, dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, let's talk about that win, 3-1. I was so glad to see it.
The El Paso commentators kept talking about, wow, Detroit City's first goal this season's an own goal. Wow, that's their first goal of the year. Wow, and it's like, we get it, man. We get it. They didn't score last week, and the goal they have this week is literally because your 37-year-old flopping center back put his foot in the wrong direction and happened to deflect in. We get it. We understand. Please stop telling us. So I was pleased for the team to see Stephen Carroll take that ball off of Lucho Solniak, get it to Skage, who found Yazid Matthews on the run, who took 2 steps and powered it into the back. I was really glad to be like, okay, there's their first goal of the season. Please stop referencing the own goal. And then it got even better when Reese uncorked across from the left wing. They won't give him the assist, but the ball bounced off Connor Rutz and fell to Maxi Rodriguez at the top of the box, who took one look, pivoted, left top corner to make it 3-1, and they held on for the rest of that. I said if they make those mistakes, Detroit has a chance. It's about converting. They made those mistakes. Detroit converted, and 3-1 victory.
The game looked different. The play looked different. It was a lot of end-to-end, which I know isn't necessarily like Trevor James' favorite thing to see, but it frankly seemed like the boys were excited to go ahead and get aggressive and get into the net. It didn't feel like the same old trap kind of like Anaconda. It felt a lot more like not only are we going to beat you, we're going to put an exclamation point on this. It felt there was just so much more energy with this team, with this game.
To keep the snake vibe going, less anaconda, more viper, more something that's just jumping at you, which is good.
It was fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. It worries me, though, because while the defense still is pretty stout, there were a few moments where getting countered, I got a little worried. Lucho got a few runs where I would not have liked him to get runs. Heck, even the goal they gave up wasn't really great. A cross came in from the right wing that got deflected into the air, and nobody saw the running midfielder running full speed, Denis Kostyshin, Ukrainian player, who slammed his head in. And honestly, it was a decently hit header, but it wasn't hit super hard. Nate reacted late because he thought someone was going to get a foot or a head or something on it, and they just let it fall to this guy who's running from 15 yards away.
I believe he came so far that he was literally running directly from Kyiv.
If you did a stopwatch to look up, you could say, okay, 1-1 set, 100, 2-100. And by the time someone, I guess, really realized where the ball was going to fall, it was already hitting Kostyshin's head on its way to the bottom right corner, which is not great. But they got the win, which is really all that matters, to set them up for their home game this weekend against Indy 11.
Indy 11 did not play last weekend, so we don't get as good of a look at them as we have other things. Now, El Paso, that was their third game in a week, so they were running tired, and we took advantage of it. Indy gets some rest. We don't as much have a view into it. They did end up tying the Rowdies, but you and I were talking a little bit. The Rowdies are kind of leaking players a little bit. It's kind of hard to gauge where they're at this early in the season.
I mean, yeah, they are leaking players. They're still a really stout team. Probably one of the teams that'll be top 3 in the East. So Indy tying with them after having the season they had last year. It's a good start. I mean, with all the players they added, you'd expected them to have more. They got Solomon Asante last year, 2-time MVP from Phoenix. They added Sebastian Guenzati, formerly of the Rowdies. Really, really great player. They also added Cam Lindley, coming to them from Colorado Springs. Native Indiana player, played for Indy 11 before, had a great year at Colorado Springs, decided he wanted to come home. They're stacking the deck. Indy's doing their best to say, you know what, we're making a run to try to be good again. They used to be one of the flag star teams of the NASL or USL championship before. They also added Douglas Martinez, who's a Honduran international from Sacramento Republic. So yeah, they're making steps to show that they don't want to be the doormat anymore. They took the memo about Loudoun no longer being a MLS 2 team and all the MLS 2 teams leaving. They said, you know what? They're getting better. We need to get better. Speaking of Loudoun, Loudoun's for real.
I can't believe you're saying that, but I saw the match too. You're right.
They're not a bad team anymore. They welcomed champion San Antonio FC to their house, tied 1-1. Realistically, had a chance to win that. They have this player, Panos Armanakis, who is going to come to Keyworth, and everyone's going to hate him because he's going to be doing all the flashy tricks that's going to make people go, wow. He's going to make you one of your favorite defenders fall and touch the ground. I'm telling you that now, if you're listening, so you can get out of the way, so you're not stunned when it happens. But Loudoun's for real. So I know that's down the line. I know we're talking about Indy 11, but just Loudoun's for real, which means like these games now really matter because there are no longer many bad teams in the East, unless you want to count Memphis now.
Let's talk about Indy 11. Let's get back to what we're dealing with this Saturday, 4 p.m. at Keyworth. I am curious to see how it's all going to play out. And here's the thing. If there is a defensive mistake or something and it's a 1-1 game or a 0-1 game, that's one thing. But if you're able to put balls in the net, you're able to make it so that those individual mistakes don't hurt as much. You get 3 goals in, you're going to win most soccer matches. I know that Indy may not allow that much. It's a different team than El Paso. But what I liked about it with adding a little bit of offense with the strength of the defense, that means that you can make an error and it's not going to be critical because at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes like every team does.
And I mean, I know we expect teams to not make mistakes. If no one makes a mistake in soccer, the game is 0-0, and then no one really had fun except for those purists who are like, it's just like the game. Indy retooled their offense. It's sparkling and glittery. Their defense is kind of I know they picked up Giannis Odell, German player, German keeper from Hartford. I didn't think he was that great, but people love him. Their first goal they gave up against Tampa Bay was probably his fault. Cross came from the right wing, and instead of him staying in the box, he left his post to try to deflect the cross on the ground and missed it. So the streaking wingback on the left side only had to just tap the ball into the net because there was no one in net, and he had the nerve to be mad at his defenders. So he's still learning his defense, but if he's making mistakes like that, that plays right into DCFC's hands because DCFC loves to cross the ball. So maybe he goes for a few crosses and whiffs at them, and then that leaves, some open netting. So I think Detroit actually might win this game. I think 2-1 is a pretty good score. I can't say it's a shutout because they have Guenzati, they have Quinn, they have Lindley, they have Asante, they have a bunch of players who can put the ball in the net or put the ball close enough for someone to tap it in. But I do see their defense having some issues with the way Detroit plays. And if Skage plays the way that he played last week, this week against them, they're going to be untouchable.
Excellent. For fan service, Ben Morris, do we kind of need to put him on the he'll show up when he shows up kind of thing because of the passport and the visa and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of like with Yazid, where last year Yazid was training with the team. He was there, but he had some visa issues, so he was unable to be fully cleared until later. I think Ben Morris had to leave to come back to get his visa done. I think now they're just waiting on a passport that's, legal and proper. But once that's taken care of, I think he'll be ready to go. I think, honestly, he might make his debut this week. I don't know. I might not start him. I might start Yazid. He did have the hot hand. He did play well, maybe not the first game, but played well the second one. Pressed a lot, did what he normally does.
You expect the same starting 11 or a similar one?
I normally wouldn't say this, but yeah. Connor Rudd started out as like a wing player for Saginaw Valley. I know when he played for Dayton Dutch Lions, he also was a wing defender. When he got to Detroit, they kind of moved him a bit more central. But being a wing player is not foreign to him. Maybe a wing player for Detroit is a little bit foreign. He played great on the right wing. I was worried about him on the right wing and Reese on the left. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing those two starting in those positions going forward. And everyone else can sit exactly as they are. Tommy McCabe played great in the middle.
And I felt like Skage was kind of embracing that control tower role.
It's really wild for someone as big as he is. Like he's like the tallest finesse player I've ever seen play. Like I've never seen someone his size who can run through you, but would maybe opt to run around you instead. And his control of just keeping the ball at his feet, taking damage and getting the ball to somebody is like that's such a great link up that they were missing last year. If he can continue playing like that going forward, it's going to really free up everyone else. I mean, heck, the goal that they scored with Yazid, Skage came back to the midfield line almost to get the ball, which is something your forwards typically don't do. But the fact he came all the way back that far, was able to get the ball up to Yazid quickly, who then took his touches and put the ball in the net. That's a weapon. That's someone who can drop deep, withstand some pressure, get around some people, and find someone who's open. And with soccer, just like any other sport like basketball, hockey, if you double somebody, someone is directly open. So when Skage beats a defender and beats another defender, that means someone's wide open. So to have a player like that who can drive at you and pull people out of position, it's great to have, especially when you're a counterattacking team, because in counterattacking teams, you need open space to attack. If you pull someone out of position, all you have is open space.
All right, Fletcher Sharpe, it's so good to talk to you.
Yeah, of course. It's good to, talk sports on a really good spring day.
Yeah, I am excited for this week. I am J.R. Stays. Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. As we said earlier in the show, patreon.com/dailydetroit. If you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. I cannot wait to get on the pitch at Keyworth this Saturday. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around, well, this time, Hamtramck.